Welcome to the Let's Think About It podcast, where we embark on a journey of thoughtfulness and personal growth. I'm your host, Coach Mo, and I'm here to guide you through thought-provoking discussions that will inspire you to unlock your full potential. In each episode, we'll explore a wide range of topics from self-discovery and mindfulness to goal setting and achieving success. Together, we'll challenge conventional thinking and dive deep into the realms of possibility. Whether you're looking to find clarity in your personal or professional life or seeking strategies to overcome obstacles, this podcast is your go-to source for insightful conversations and practical advice. So find a comfortable spot, chill, and let's embark on this journey of self-improvement together. Remember, the power of transformation lies within you, and together we'll uncover the tools and insights you need to make it happen. So let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of the Let's Think About It podcast. I'm your host, Coach Mo, and today it's all about your boy. I'm coming at you. And we spent a lot of time always talking about that punk ass inner critic, right? Today, I got something a little bit more special for you, in which I'm going to teach you how to shift from experiencing that inner critic to the inner coach. I'm not going to break down what the inner critic is again, because you can go to episode 22 and episode 17. You can get all that insight and how I really breaks down the inner critic. But today, I think I want to give you more insight on how do you shift that though? Where does that happen? It's one thing to experience the deflating insecurity and the chatter of this voice that's making you play small in your head. But how do you get rid of it? How do you make the shift so that you feeling more empowered, more encouraged, more synergetic in a flow of optimism that you potentially can feel? How do you get to that point? And that's what I want to break down, because when you get to that point, I personally believe your inner coach is present. He's present. He really is. So what exactly is this inner coach that I'm referring to? I break it down like this. So I'm a coach, right? When I'm helping my clients self-discover more mindfulness, optimism, gratitude, just empowering feelings that we experience time to time, right? As a coach, we become that voice that's consistently asking these powerful questions to clients to help them reflect and create self-awareness so that they can begin to get out of their own way. It takes a lot of practice understanding how to ask those right questions for yourself. And it's not really hard. It's like a skill, and that skill comes with practice. So as a coach, what I've learned going through all of my certification training, I learned really the number one skill is asking powerful questions. I learned that. And the best way that I learned it was practicing the repetition, getting those reps in, right? Asking open-ended questions that helps create awareness. That's ultimately what it is. That's a skill that we develop. And the other skill that I hone in for myself, there's so many different coaching skills, and I'm not going to break all of those down today, but I'm going to line in to the ones that really resonates with me, that I use the most in my practice and working with people. And that's what would help make that shift to that inner coach of what I'm referring to. So the powerful questions is one thing, and understanding like how to ask open-ended questions. Ask open-ended questions to who? To yourself. When you learn to do that for yourself, that really starts to create mindfulness, create self-awareness, and then really work towards answering those questions. A simple question would be, why am I feeling the way that I feel right now? What am I truly resisting right now? How true is what I'm saying about myself valid? Just questions like that and being conscious to be able to answer those questions for yourself, right? So that's just one skill as a coach that I work with my clients on. And I help become more curious and whatever they're going through by asking these powerful questions. It really triggers awareness for them. And as they go through the sequence of thinking through these questions and being accountable to answering them and putting action behind it, they naturally start to create more self awareness. That's where that coach becomes present. I'm the coach in that moment. I'm present for them in asking these questions. The inner coach does the same thing, but you have the consciousness and the awareness to do it for yourself, which could be very difficult, but we often do it. So think about those times when you're just very discouraged, you're upset, and you're just in this funk. At some point, there's a transition from going out of that funk back to your regular state of being. It triggers you to get out of it. I don't know. We all are different people, but something triggers us to move from that state of being frustrated back to your normal way of being. Is it something where you become tired of being frustrated? So you decide that I'm not going to do this? Or do you coach yourself out of that state? Like, I can't stay here anymore. This is enough of being this way. It's time to move forward. You know what? I'm not going to worry about this anymore. I'm going to just move forward. In that moment, in that present, when you're having that self talk with yourself, that's the inner coach that's motivating you to move out of your own way, right? How do you get that viewpoint, that inner coach, that component to be present more, to limit the inner critic from being present for a long duration of time? How do you do that? That's what I want to break down for you today. That's what I want to help teach you and how to create more of this inner coach so that when times does come where you are feeling frustrated, you are feeling hopeless, when you are feeling guilty, when you are feeling sad, when you are feeling stressed, or when you are feeling anxious, when you are feeling afraid, all of these things, right? That's when the inner critic is really the most present because now you have the chirping in your ear that's telling you you're not good enough. And it's just this negative self talk that you experience. And what I'm going to break down is how do you shift from that to the inner coach where he said or she says in your head, no, you're awesome. You're great. You're a performer. You are a rock star. You're the bomb. You got this. You are the woman. You are the man. You are amazing. You are the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. How do you get that person, that coach that's consistently telling you that in your head? And that's what I want to break down for you today because it's always easiest to talk about what we don't want to do and what we don't like because that naturally just comes to us. So whenever you're able to have the inner coach present, okay, there's like this synergetic force it's just present. It's I'm not trying to get into Star Wars or anything like that, but they always talk about the force. And with the force, there's this mindfulness that the Jedi and always talk about, right? It's true though. It's real. There's this synergetic force that you feel when you're in that element of momentum. And it's funny because I was talking to a client about this, and she was just telling me a situation that she was going through, and she had this idea, right? She had this idea of going back to school, and her synergetic force was interrupted. And here's how it was interrupted. And I'm not going to get into the details of her story, but someone close to her said, why are you going to do that? You don't need to go back to school, blah, 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 blah. In that moment, think about it. And I know we've all been there. We've all been there. You got this idea and you excited about it and you got this good feeling that it's going to work. You optimistic, you ready to go, and then you share it with someone. And that person was just like, why are you going to do that? That doesn't make sense. In that moment, when you're hearing that, you become deflated. Maybe not a lot, but in some sense, your level of energy drops. That's because your synergetic force was interrupted by someone that's not in alignment of the same optimism, energy, and flow that you're experiencing. That's when it becomes easier to self doubt yourself because your synergetic force was altered because of this outside noise that disrupted it. A couple of things either happen. One, you listen to them and you believe it, and you become doubtful and you don't move forward with the idea because you think that there's certain validity to what they're saying and you believe it to be true. Or totally dismiss it and you keep it moving. And that's a little bit harder to do because sometimes the people that are sharing this negativity or this doubt about your idea, you really care about them. You really love them. You really respect their opinion. The reality of it is sometimes it's not about them really trying to hate on you or anything. It's just that they're incorporating their fears into your state of being. They might have had a certain experience that generates a level of fear, and the way that they're coming across about your idea is to unintentionally incorporate their concerns, their fears into your reality and your momentum of what you're trying to do. And we listen to that. And then we become doubtful and afraid based off of their feedback that they gave us. And it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't if you have your inner coach present. The inner coach, when it's present, is ultimately how you generate that synergetic force. But then when you let someone interrupt that, the inner coach starts to take a back seat and the inner critic becomes more present. That's how this works. It goes up and down. Who's going to lead, the inner critic or the inner coach? When it's disrupted, when your synergetic force is disrupted, meaning that free flowing momentum of optimism, empowerment, encouragement that you feel, and it's interrupted by doubt, worry, fear, guilt, afraid, all of that. Your inner coach takes a back seat and the inner critic steps forward, all because of the influence of individuals outside of you who may unintentionally do this because they truly do care about you. They do love you. They do want you to succeed, but it's their fear that's blocking your synergetic force if you allow it. So, what I'm going to break down is how do we maintain this inner coach? How do we get to that point? So, let's break that down right now. There's 5 things that you can do. There's a lot of things you can do, actually more than 5, but I'm going to highlight the top 5 things that I do to elevate the inner coach in me so that I'm showing up as the best version of myself and being very encouraged. Number 1, the most powerful thing you can do to bring out that inner coach, journaling in the moment when you take time aside and writing down your thoughts. You actually become present in your thoughts of what's going on. So as you journal, here's what I would want you to do. Journal the things that trigger you, items throughout the week. Let's just say from Sunday to Sunday, throughout the week, when there's something that triggers you to create frustration, annoyance, guilt, hopelessness, fear, anything around that area, journal it. Journal it day by day. And maybe if you're a morning person, start your day journaling from what happened the night before or the day before. If you're a night person, journal before you go to bed based off of certain fears and things like that. We have so many tools to that for our accessibility, it's ridiculous. We all carry these smartphones, right? Use your smartphone. They have notepads in it. Anytime that you're triggered by a negative emotion, put a note in it for you in your phone so you don't forget. Just a quick note of why you were feeling the way that you were feeling in that moment. Later that night, journal about it to remind yourself. Journal affirmations. Take maybe 10 minutes to write how great you are and positive affirmations about yourself. I am amazing. I am an all-star. I am great. I am loving. I am joy. I am fulfillment. I am blessed. I am happy. I am prosperous. I am amazing. I am greatness. See, those are positive affirmations. And just do that stuff. The reason why journaling is so present is because you're teaching yourself the positivity. So we're taking the approach of identifying what's triggering you so that you have the awareness of when and how these negative emotions are coming for you. That's what you're doing. That's why I say do that point, right? And then on the other side of it, write out affirmations. That creates the positivity as well. So when you say, okay, do that for a week, why am I doing this? You want to do this as much as you can. And I'm saying a week to generate the start of a new habit for you. We want to really approach it more consistently so that this can start to shift into a habit. Because what journaling do, it moves us into the second reason of how we can generate a better inner coach for you. Journaling creates mindfulness. Mindfulness is this self-awareness to know that when you're feeling good and when you're not feeling good. When are you at your best? And how do you maximize when you're at your best? When you're at your worst, how do you know when to shift away from feeling your worst to your best? See, all that happens through mindfulness. But in order to get to mindfulness, journaling is a very strategic way in how you can get to more mindfulness. Because at times you don't know what you don't know. Somebody triggers you and you're upset. Sometimes we just wait for it to simmer down and go away. You know, you don't have to wait. Right when you're triggered to be upset, you can immediately shift that if you choose to. But there's a level of mindfulness that needs to be present in order to just shift it away. Somebody triggers me, Mo, that just doesn't make sense. I'm pissed off. I'm going to be pissed off and I'm going to stay pissed off. True that. And it's your choice to always be pissed off. But if you don't like being pissed off, you can choose not to be pissed off and you don't have to wait. There's a level of mindfulness to pause, take a step back, shift a thought, create better energy, and move away from it. That's mindfulness. But if you don't have that, you feel like you have to wait for it to go away. You have to stay pissed off. You have to be angry. And that's just not true when mindfulness is present. When mindfulness is present, gives you the ability to ask yourself, what is it that this person did that's frustrating me right now? What is the root of my anger? And really try to answer that. And what can I do to shift away from this anger of what I'm feeling? So now I'm forwarding out of this state of being frustrated into a more desirable state. What's limiting me from moving away from my frustration that I'm feeling right now? See, when I can ask myself that question, that's mindfulness is present. That's the inner coach stepping up. Whereas the inner critic would be saying the opposite. See, You need to be mad. You need to figure out how we're going to get this person back. It just doesn't make sense. They always are treating you this way. And that inner critic keeps you present in the frustration of what you're feeling. Whereas the inner coach is saying, what steps are we going to take to move past the frustration that you're feeling right now? That's the inner coach. And when you start thinking of solutions, guess what? You move out of that frustration. But you can't have that without mindfulness. But to get to mindfulness, start journaling. Journaling is very easy to do, very easy to do, but it's even easier not to do. And all it really comes down to is a discipline, being disciplined, dedicating 10 minutes a day. You hear me? 10 minutes in 24 hours. Every 24 hours, 10 minutes to journal something. Just get a notebook and just identify the things that trigger you when they happen. Do it in your iPhone, do it in a notepad, however, whatever's comfortable for you on a computer, and journal it. Then go back. And as you're journaling it throughout the week, go back, look at it, think about it. How did this occur? Why is this occurring? Right? That's the mindfulness. It's starting to become present. And while you're journaling, you're being mindful of how this is happening, where is this coming from? That's the self-awareness piece. You're more conscious around the things that are triggering you. You are becoming more conscious around the things that make you happy because you're journaling affirmations as well. The third thing, gratitude. And you guys heard me talk a lot about gratitude. I love gratitude. Gratitude thoughts is powerful. And everybody has their beliefs and how they incorporate gratitude. But my understanding for me that works for Mo is just being thankful for everything that I do, being very optimistic and expressing gratitude and all. Practicing gratitude thoughts is my jam. I love that. And I really try to help my clients understand how powerful gratitude thoughts can be and how simple they are. So a gratitude thought can be something as simple as, I'm grateful for my health. I am so blessed to be present with my kids, my daughter on a normal day. I'm so grateful to have a job. I'm so blessed of my journey that I'm having as a coach. See, these are all little gratitude thoughts. The one thing that you can start to do in increasing your gratitude thoughts is being more consistent with your thoughts. And here's how you can start to manipulate your mind to encourage more gratitude thoughts. And one thing that I tell my clients to do is every time you go into the kitchen, you got to have a gratitude thought. That's the goal. Every time you walk into the kitchen, have a gratitude thought. I don't care what it is, but have a gratitude thought. Or every time you go to the restroom, we go to the restroom every day, for whatever reason. Every time you enter the restroom, you gotta have a gratitude thought. That's the rule. That's the game. And you play that game with yourself. Now that goes back to mindfulness, right? Because you playing this game. Every time you go into the restroom, you gotta have a gratitude thought. Okay, so you're going throughout your day, you're doing it, like, okay, oh, this is pretty cool. But then you forget. And when you forget, maybe, I don't know, it just depends on who you are. But you'll remember that you forgot to do the gratitude thought the last time you went to the restroom. That's where the mindfulness comes into play. And guess what you do when you forget? You try to make it up. And then you have the gratitude thought to make it up because you missed it, because mindfulness was present. And that's the trick. The fact that you remember that you forgot to have a gratitude thought, guess what you typically do? You have a gratitude thought right then and there. And then you just start to expand it. Most of us have cars, I would assume. Anytime you come to a stop sign, gratitude thought. Stoplight, stop sign, gratitude thought. So this creates even more mindfulness. And here's how. If you really are practicing while you're driving, you got to have a gratitude thought every time you stop at a stop sign or stoplight. Generates the best mindfulness, in my opinion. Because at times you may have kids in the car. You may have your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, friends, whoever's in the car with you. You may even be playing music, listening to a podcast, whatever you're doing while you're driving. It takes mindfulness to be in a conversation, to be listening to what you're listening to, dealing with your kid, whatever the case might be, to come to a stop sign while in conversation with someone, while listening to your podcast, and have a gratitude thought simultaneously while you're in conversations with people. That's powerful mindfulness. And when you can consistently do that, you're training your inner coach to be present more from the mindfulness. That's how this thing works. And the more that you can do that, the better you start to feel about your circumstances and your situation, because the inner coach is leaning forward. So you naturally feel good. And the inner critic is taking a back seat. And you're just in a better place. The synergetic force is present. That's how it's working. The mindfulness. So you started with journaling, and then the journaling creates more mindfulness. The mindfulness creates the reminder to be grateful. Gratitude. You see how it's working. You see how it's all coming together. The next thing is understanding your values. There's whatever your values are for you. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's integrity. Maybe it's enthusiasm. Maybe it's energy. Maybe it's joy. Maybe it's family. The purpose of understanding your values is often, more times than not, when the inner critic is present, we forget about our values in that moment and what's really important. And when we can remain present of why these values are so important and hone in on the values, opposed to being distracted by the frustration, the inner coach becomes more present and reminding you and moving you back towards the mindfulness and gratitude, and regenerates the synergetic force that we feel of optimism, empowerment, joy. So you may be thinking, I don't really get it. I don't get, how does our values really connect to all of this? So let me put it in an example. Let's go into the work environment, and you're mad and you're triggered by an individual who works on your team, and he really or she really pisses you off, right? And let's say your top 5 values is integrity, joy, enthusiasm, positivity, and say work ethic. Those are your top 5. When you're in their present, they're triggering you. How does this relate to your values? The real reason that you may be pissed off is because this person, every time they're present, it disrupts your energy, because they consistently lie, not on time, or not very professional, right? And because integrity is one of your high values, it makes sense that this person that's triggering you, their professional etiquettes and behavior doesn't match the integrity of what you bring to the team. So it's normal to really be upset. So now you have to take a step back, right? Mindfulness, to say, what can I do? Because that's what you have control over, to move past the frustrations that you feel so that you continue to demonstrate high integrity, because that's one of your high values. And being a high integrity person in this situation, what does that look like? And I'm thinking of a person of high integrity typically would have ownership in their own thoughts. And so what can I do in my own thoughts to move past the frustration that I'm feeling? And then I come up with a solution is, I'm not going to be drawn into the trigger, and I'm going to be calm and patient and seek understanding of of why I continue to allow this person to trigger me when they have nothing to do with me. And then I come up with a solution and I move forward. That's how I incorporated the values in that sense. Understanding your values, taking a step back when triggered, and that's when the inner critic really starts to tries to come present. But when you understand your values and then can implement gratitude, be in mindfulness, which all connects back to the things you journaled, you move away from that and your inner coach becomes present again. And then finally, reframing. This is golden right here. This is the golden nugget. And you might have heard me say this before, but playing tricks with your mind. So when you are triggered, those triggers might be the time to be more courageous. Maybe it's not the time to be afraid, but the time to be brave or courageous. See, we look at the funny feelings that we get when something is about to happen, always as it being a bad thing. And then the emotion comes after it. The frustration, the anger, and the fear, all of that follows it. But what's to say, and this typically happens with the unknown. We don't know what's about to happen. So the tendency is to feel afraid, like public speaking, about to give an important speech. That's the typical times where you feel the fear about to come, the trigger of the fear, whatever you want to call it. What if when you feel it, that rush starting to come on, of fear, that is really the times telling you to be more courageous? Reframe it like that. Take action. Reframing. Anytime. Here's how you make it all connect. So when you're journaling, and as you identify those triggers from journaling of the things that pissed you off, at the end of the week, go back through all of those episodes that you identified as triggers that pissed you off, made you afraid, all of those negative emotions. Now reframe it that when it happens again, this is when you're going to be courageous. What does the courage look like in that moment? You define it. You define it. It doesn't have to be, you got to change the world type courageous. Courageous could just be taking one action. That's it. That's the trigger, right? The trigger happens, but instead of being angry, what's one thing that you're going to do to be brave? What's one thing that you're going to do to be more courageous? That's reframing. And when you can do that, and you take that action step from the reframing mindset, the synergetic force is present. The inner coach is present, and you just naturally will start to feel better. Now, the bigger question becomes the consistency of the five: journaling, mindfulness, gratitude, understanding your values, and reframing. When you can consistently put those five together, your inner coach starts to be more present, more so than the inner critic. And you naturally just start to feel better as a person. And things just start shifting in your life. It just does. It does. And I share this with you because one, I do it and it makes me feel good and moves me away from frustration and things like that. We all experience it. I'm not saying that I'm above anybody. I experience certain triggers just as you. I forget about these five things as well sometimes too, but it's just a matter of consistency. And when I get off the tracks, my mindfulness is what puts me back on the train tracks every time. I'm just like you. I'm just like you. And when I've created, when you put these five things together, that helps keep the inner coach present and you will just naturally feel better. And it's just a repetition. And here's the hurdle of what you're going to deal with as we get off of this podcast today. Here's the hurdle. It's easiest not to do this stuff. Some of you may get to this point, turn it off, and go on about your day and don't even practice any of this. Some of you are already practicing this. Kudos to you. But those who really is looking for a shift and trying to really get that inner coach back present in their being, recreating a synergetic force, it's easiest not to do this by nature. By nature, it's easiest to stay comfortable and not doing any of this stuff and just accepting what the inner critic is telling us. That's the easiest thing that you can do. But if you really want to make a shift, you really want to change your habits, you incorporate these 5 things: journaling, mindfulness, gratitude, understanding your values, and reframing. You do that, you're taking steps toward making your inner coach more present. I hope you got a lot out of this episode. I appreciate you trusting in me. Move forward. Journaling, mindfulness, gratitude, understanding your values, and reframing is the best way to increase your inner coach to make more present in your being. Thank you. Take care. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Let's Think About It. Your time and attention are greatly appreciated. If you found value in today's discussion, I encourage you to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, the journey of self-improvement is ongoing, and I'm here to support you every step of the way. Connect with me on social media for updates and insights. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Coach Mo Coaching or LinkedIn at Maurice Mabry. Or visit my website at mauricemabry.com for exclusive content. Until next time, keep reflecting, keep growing, and most importantly, keep believing in yourself. Remember, the most effective way to do it is to do it. Together, we're making incredible strides toward a better and more empowered you. So thank you, and I'll see you in our next episode.